So, when you hear the phrase Bitcoin mining, what comes to mind? Probably, a pickaxe, a hard hat, someone digging for digital gold. But the reality, it's less about digging and way more about guessing. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this massive global guessing game that, believe it or not, is what keeps the entire Bitcoin network running. All right, so right off the bat, let's just get this sorted. The term mining is a fantastic metaphor for putting in a lot of effort to find something valuable. But that's where the comparison ends. We're not talking about a physical search. What's actually happening is a massive, decentralized lottery, where incredibly powerful computers all around the world are competing to win.
And here's the roadmap for today. We're going to start by totally busting that mining myth. Then we'll get into what a miner's real job is. From there, we'll dive headfirst into the great guessing game itself, figure out why it's so ridiculously difficult, and finally, connect all the dots to see how all this effort is what makes the network so secure.
Okay, first things first, the myth. That word mining really does a great job of conveying just how much effort it takes to create new Bitcoin. But the work here isn't physical at all. It's all happening inside computer processors, not in a mine shaft.
So, if it's all computational work, what exactly are these computers computing? Well, it turns out miners have a super important job. You can think of them as the official bookkeepers for the entire Bitcoin network. They're the ones validating and recording every single transaction.
So in more technical terms, a miner is just a specialized computer, or what's called a node, on the network. Its main gig is to grab all the latest transactions, make sure they're legitimate, and then bundle them all up into what's called a block.
And this whole bookkeeping job really serves two key purposes. First, by adding these new blocks, miners are literally extending the public ledger, the blockchain. And second, as a reward for all that hard work, the miner who successfully adds the block gets paid in newly created Bitcoin. This is called the block reward, and it's not just their paycheck, it's the only way new Bitcoin ever enters the system.
Okay, so all these miners are in a constant competition to be the next one to add a block to the chain. But how do you win? How is the winner actually decided? Well, my friends, this is where the great guessing game begins.
A lot of people think miners are solving these super complex math problems, but that's not quite right. As one of our sources put it, it's really more like a lottery. They're not doing advanced calculus or anything like that. They're basically just guessing numbers at an unbelievable speed, hoping they get a lucky ticket.
So here's how that lottery actually works, broken down into 4 pretty simple steps. First, a miner grabs all the latest transaction data. Second, they guess a completely random number. This number has a special name. It's called a nonce. Third, they take that nonce and the transaction data and smash them together to produce something called a hash. And finally, they check if that hash is a winner. If it's not, they just change the nonce and do it all over again, millions, billions, even trillions of times a second.
Now, I just mentioned the word hash. What is that? The easiest way to think about it is like a unique digital fingerprint. You feed some data, any data, into a specific math function, and it spits out this unique string of letters and numbers. For Bitcoin, that data is the transactions plus that random nonce we just talked about. And that nonce is the real key to this whole game. It's short for number used once, and it's the only piece of the puzzle that the miner can actually change. So they just keep trying different nonces, generating a brand new hash every single time, all in the hopes of finding one that wins the lottery.
Okay, but wait a second. If it's really just a guessing game, what makes it so incredibly hard? Why do you need entire warehouses full of specialized computers, all burning energy just to guess a number? The odds, it turns out, are astronomical.
Which brings us to the most important question in this whole process. What actually makes a hash a winner? Out of the quintillions of possibilities, what are they even looking for?
The answer is kind of shockingly simple. The Bitcoin network itself sets what's called a target hash. A winning hash isn't one specific magical number. It's any hash that, when you look at it as a number, is smaller than the current target. That's it. That's the entire rule of the game. Guess until you find a number lower than the target number.
Here's a really great way to get your head around this. Imagine you've got a 1,000-sided die. If I tell you to roll a number below 250, well, your odds are pretty good, right? But what if I tell you that you have to roll a number below 10? Suddenly, the odds are much, much worse. The Bitcoin network makes the game harder simply by lowering that target number, which makes finding a winning hash way, way rarer.
And the scale of this competition is just staggering. As of right now, the entire Bitcoin network is making over 500 exahashes per second. That is, 500 followed by 18 zeros. That's 500 times quintillion guesses every single second. That's the mind-blowing power of this global lottery.
Now here's the really clever part. The whole system is designed to automatically adjust how hard the game is. The network changes that target number up or down to make sure that, with all those quintillions of guesses happening, a winner is found roughly every 10 minutes. So if more miners join and start guessing faster, the game gets harder. If miners leave, the game gets easier. It always keeps that steady, predictable 10-minute pace.
And this brings us to the biggest, most important question of all. So what? Why? Why did Satoshi Nakamoto design this massive, power-hungry, global guessing game in the first place? What is the point of all this effort?
It's a totally fair question. Why force all these computers to do all this seemingly random work, just to add some transactions to a ledger? Well, the answer gets to the absolute heart of what makes Bitcoin, Bitcoin. And that answer is security.
This whole system has a name. It's called proof of work. That winning hash isn't just a lucky lottery ticket. It's the proof. It is verifiable mathematical evidence that the miner spent real-world resources, tons of computing power and electricity, to find it. You can't cheat, you can't fake it, you have to do the work.
And it's this work that is the secret sauce to the network security. See, to add a fraudulent block of transactions, a bad actor would have to win the guessing game. To change a block in the past, they'd have to redo all the work for that block and for every single block that came after it, all while trying to outguess the entire honest network combined. The sheer cost and energy required makes it practically impossible.
So when you boil it all down, the security of the Bitcoin network is directly tied to the immense energy that this great guessing game consumes. Proof of work creates this unbelievably secure, tamper-proof record of history, but it comes at a massive cost and energy. And I think the central question for its future is, how do we, as a society, value that trade-off?